Hi, welcome to this segment of Digital Discoveries. I'm Tim Holt, and in this segment we're going to look at traditional analog lessons, those lessons that you have kids create with pen and paper or crayon and construction paper. And we're going to look at how you can look at those assignments that you give your students and how you can turn them into digital assignments without changing the assignment at all, just the way the assignment is delivered. So we're calling this segment analog to digital. And so when we're talking about analog lessons, we're talking about those traditional lessons, the ones that we're all familiar with, those pen, paper, construction paper lessons, the dioramas, those kind of things. And in today's segment, we're going to look at how can we start thinking about changing those analog lessons into digital lessons. And so I'm going to show you a whole bunch of examples that we've taken from walking through our hallways throughout our school district and seeing how can we turn those into digital lessons. So this segment is for teachers and administrators, mainly for teachers. Administrators, you might just want to look and see get some ideas to help your teachers think about things in a digital way. So let's go look at a typical lesson here. This is on our screen here. We're looking at an assignment, and actually I love to do this. What I do is I go around in our campuses and I see things that are hanging on the wall. I see lessons that everyone's very proud of, that they post up on the walls, and I like to take pictures of them. And then when I take pictures of them, I think to myself, well, how can this lesson, whatever we're doing in this lesson, be turned into a digital file? So here's an example. These are two different little lessons here. This is a lesson on the top. It's obviously a graph that was done on construction paper, two graphs. One's a bar chart, one's a pie chart. And the one at the bottom is kind of it demonstrates the nitrogen cycle. I think that's what we're doing there. So we have two different assignments here. So how could those two assignments, you know what the students are wanting to do, the students in these two assignments, one is they're creating charts and the other one is they're creating a cycle. How can you look at that and start thinking about how can we change that into a digital assignment? Look at this. This is the exact same assignment. This is the exact same assignment as we did before. I'm going to scoot back up again. Look at here's the charts and here's the cycle, and then here it is in digital format. We're not changing anything that we're asking the students to do. The assignment hasn't changed at all. The learning outcomes haven't changed at all. The teaks that you're addressing haven't changed at all. The lesson plan hasn't changed at all. The only thing that has changed in this lesson is how it's presented in its final format. So instead of it being traditional pen, paper, crayon construction paper, it ends up being digital. Now there's lots of advantages to having digital assignments. One is it's easier to read. If you're a teacher and you've got kids and you know how they write, it's a lot easier to read a digital assignment. But one of the main advantages is that you can share digital assignments. You can save them for long periods of time with very little storage space. So you can actually show students from one year to the next these assignments. You can save them on CD, you can save them on the web, you can pull them back out. And so when students say, well, we're not sure what it's supposed to look like, we're not sure what you're asking, you can say, well, look, here's what students last year did. See, don't copy, but how can you make this even better? So let's look at some more assignments that students have done. Here's a science assignment, and in this assignment the students are making a chart of invertebrates, and they have to break down what they are: annelids, echinoderms, mollusks, arthropods. They have to cut out those kinds of little clip art pictures of those animals, and then they have to rank them, or they have to put them in the right order. So that's a typical science assignment. It's very obvious that that's a typical science assignment. Here's what the exact same assignment looks like, but in digital format. Now, what are some advantages of it being in a digital format? Well, if you look at it in this format, you've got little pictures that students may or may not relate to. In this format, the students can actually go out on the web, find actual pictures of the animals that they're looking at, and they can still classify them, still doing exactly the same thing. But I think this is a much more meaningful assignment when the students can actually see real live pictures, well, not live pictures, but real pictures of the animals that you're talking about. Let's look at another one. This is a student vocabulary journal. So in this assignment, the student has on the left-hand side, they have some word I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so we can see it just a little bit better. You have a word across the top here. They have to define the word. They have to come up with a picture of that word and then a sentence using that word. Okay, so that's a typical assignment. That's a vocabulary journal. So now here's one of the issues that I had with this. When you look at something like this and you ask a student to draw a picture of Andrew Jackson, most third graders are going to have a real hard time drawing a picture of Andrew Jackson. There's a picture, there's one of the words is Cherokee Indian. Most third, fourth graders are going to have a hard time drawing a picture of a Cherokee Indian. But they won't have a hard time finding a picture on the web and putting that into this journal. So let's look at this exact same journal, and we did this exact same without changing any of the words. This is what the exact same assignment is. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so you can see what this looks like. Again, here's the word, Andrew Jackson. We had to define it. He was the seventh president. We didn't change any of the words that the student wrote on that assignment. But this time we put in the picture of Andrew Jackson and the sentence, Andrew Jackson was a president. Okay, so now when we start talking about assimilate, well, let's look at what the student drew in assimilate up here. This was the picture here that the student had to draw, and this was assimilate. Okay, kind of match that. But look at here, when we did a web search and we looked for an image of assimilate and Indian, we came up with a much better picture. These are the pictures of the Indians dressed in Western suits. That really shows them assimilating. So you can see that the assignment, again, is not changing at all. We're not changing the assignment at all. What we're doing is we're just changing the way the assignment's delivered. Let's look at another one here. Well, we already did that charts there, so let's look at this one. This is a little bit better assignment. This was illustrating a cycle. In this case, it's the nitrogen cycle. Okay, so what we're telling the student to do is tell us all the different parts of the nitrogen cycle and write sentences about it. Here's the exact same thing, the exact same sentence, the exact same lesson, but it's still done in a very simple, this was done on Microsoft Word. It's very, very simple. Excuse me, I think this was done in PowerPoint. So it's very, very simple. We just went out and got some bunny clip art of them eating grass. The assignment's still the same. The outcome is still the same. Now, as a teacher, I would think that this kind of assignment here would be much easier to grade. I know that in that vocabulary chart, it's a lot easier. Let's look at this one. This is an example of an analog lesson where we've kind of gotten mostly analog, but not totally analog. Here we have a short book report. The assignment of this was to practice. First they had to read the book. They had to come back and talk about some characters in the book. And so they kind of did analog and digital put together. So here's Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and here they wrote it out. Obviously they wrote it out on computer, but then they printed it out and glued it to a backboard. So we kind of went digital, but then we went backwards. We went back to analog. Think about this. On YouTube, we actually found kids actually doing like a Jay Leno presentation of a book report, Diary of a Wimpy Kid. So these girls here in this are actually doing the exact same assignment. They're talking about Diary of the Wimpy Kid. They're talking about what their favorite characters were, but instead of drawing about it, they're doing a video, kind of an interview. The girl on the left is like Jay Leno. The girls on the right are talking about it, and so it's that's an interesting way to move up. Now we're moving beyond just substituting lessons. Here they're actually creating content that they normally wouldn't have created. Here's an assignment where they had to create a news report. So in this assignment, they created a news report. They found a picture. It was news about their family, I think, and they had to put a picture in. So let's look at that exact same news report, but done in a digital way. They created an actual newscast that they posted up online, Radio Willow Web, for instance. One of our campuses, Bond Elementary, actually does a weekly newscast from their site, or they could actually make an actual newsletter. So look about this. Here's the assignment right there. That's a typical analog assignment. Look at the one on the right-hand side. The exact same type of assignment, but it's done, and so we're teaching kids not only analog skills, but we're also teaching them digital skills at the same time. So here's one that I really, really like. Here's a math lesson where the students had to identify the faces on some geometric shapes. And so they had to draw it out, and then they had to count the faces using their imagination, I guess. Now think about this. There's a program out there called Google SketchUp, where the students, it's absolutely free. All teachers in the state of Texas, we're going to have actually a show on Google SketchUp in a little while. But all students have access to Google SketchUp. It's absolutely free. If you're a kid, which would be a more meaningful assignment to you? The assignment like this, where you have to copy, and you have to draw out something, or an assignment like this, where you can actually move around in three-dimensional space. So those are just some examples of moving assignments from traditional analog to digital lessons. So I want to ask our teachers out here, consider the assignments that you've done this past week. What have you done? Think back what you did this week. Now, could any of those assignments been moved from an analog lesson final product to a digital final product? That's the kind of question that you should be asking yourselves when you're assigning students projects in your class. Thanks for joining me for this segment of Digital Discoveries.